All right, I think it's live now. I'm gonna blame Cisco. That seems like a great idea. I got these Cisco switches in, and I'm gonna do an honest review of them, and I bought them with my own money. Therefore, Cisco cannot, or no one will complain that Cisco sponsored me to say nice things about them. Not that I'm known for saying nice things about Cisco, but these Cisco switches aren't part of what I wanted for Vlog Thursday, but they did come in, so I wanted to play with them a little bit. And I'm already aggravated at some of the confusion that I may have been slightly self-inflicted, but it's not as simple as I think they could have done it. Matter of fact, the Cisco documentation tells you to, what did it say? Set up your Bluetooth? Bluetooth was a suggested setup, and I'm just like, Bluetooth, what? That didn't make a lot of sense. And actually, if you want to see the interface, oh, maybe it'll load. It's not the fastest interface, by the way. So yeah, it spins for a little while. There we go. Now we have a login page. Monitoring. It's pretty. Look at that. We got a fun dashboard over here. But anyways, we'll get to these later. This is going to be a separate review. A few people have asked me about Cisco stuff, and I thought it'd be interesting to take a dive into it. We usually run into it pre-configured, already installed at clients. We don't actively go out and really buy and deploy a lot of Cisco stuff. But use the CLI. Yes, well, that's weird. Ghosts. The shredder just kicked in for no reason. Yeah, use the CLI definitely is what you have to do to really configure this. And by the way, it also runs something called LAN Lite. There was a lot of little confusion. I noticed when you start searching for these, there are confusion about what it actually runs, how it actually works, and things like that. Am I in enable mode still? No. But it runs, I don't know. We'll get into the details. I'm trying to remember. I'm the least Cisco person here in this building, probably. I don't know. I don't do much of it. Oh, I got to show and then do this. Is there just a version I can show? Someone's screaming in Cisco at the live stream, probably. Let me switch to that. Might even be one of my staff because they know Cisco better than me. I haven't done this in fact. Yeah, show version. Show version. There we go. So this is running version 15.2 Cisco bootloader. It's iOS, but it's not the normal iOS. And this is what's a little bit confusing about these particular switches is they are running Cisco iOS, but then you get into the details. Because I think the latest version of iOS is it 17. So therefore, it's part of the confusion, and that's why I want to do a video on these, not sponsored by Cisco, which is why I purchased them with my own money, so I can actually dive into a solid opinion on whether or not you would like these or not. Basically, I'm going to go through all the functions and settings and talk about some of the things in there. Right erase. There we go. And reload. Yeah, I need to reset it. I want to do it again. I want to go through the setup again because the other settings on this were kind of confusing. So, yeah, right erase and reload. There we go. Let's see. What do we have here? Hello from Idaho. And Old York. Not New York, but Old York in the UK. Let's see. Greetings from the friendly neighborhood Ohio MSP. Awesome. RMMs. Yeah, RMMs are always goofy. There's none of them that are good. So if all else fails, just do a right erase, reload, and that should just blow these away, right? I'm going to reset them up a couple times, and obviously I have to erase them and set them up again when I do my review video because I want to do what it's like plugging them in out of the box until they're set up. That's how my videos I like to do, like the complete setup and not skip any parts and be very clear on how these things work. Can you have too many wireless access points on the same network? You have to have the network big enough to handle the number of access points. And I just did a video, and thank you, William Daughtery, for a donation. I just did a video on some of the deployments on UniFi and wireless planning, and I left a link to large-scale deployments. Some of the things you have to turn off are detailed out in that document specifically from UniFi, but this actually doesn't just apply to UniFi. And it's basically turning down broadcast traffic and things like that, because you don't want a bunch of chatter and noise when you have 1,000 access points. There's not exactly a limit of too many, as much as it is you have to tune it if you have 300 access points on a network. And we've done these deployments where they're larger like that, and a little fine tuning goes a long ways. Most of the time we're dealing with 10 access points, and out of the box 10, 20, 30 of them are not really any problem with the UniFi setup, and a lot of other brands as well. Hello from Oregon, Chechnya, Poland. We got Europe and West Coast in here. Yeah, someone else pointed out you can have a broadcast problem if there's too many. 2,000 plus, but all the APs have different management VLANs. That's another important topic of how you design it and make sure everything's on. You'd want a management VLAN versus a transport layer where you're actually connecting the clients to. So that's another way to look at it when you're designing it, because you don't necessarily want a bunch of people crowding it along with all of that, because then you can have more confusion. Or you could even segment out to multiple management VLANs in different sections. And then there's the case that we have with some clients who have a central controller, a whole lot of access points spread across a bunch of different buildings that are all physically on separate networks, but they all have the same SSID. That way, when someone goes from one location to another location at any one of the locations, the SSIDs follow. So there's actually not too many access points on there. Every location has a set of access points. So we've consulted on a couple companies that use that design. Do I think pfBlocker 3.0 is ready for prime time? I don't see why not. It's just a refactoring of code. I just released a video on it. I like it. It works well. I can't really say. I mean, I had a couple problems where I updated and it stopped the DNS resolver from running, and I clicked the start button, but I believe that's been resolved, so that's not even relevant anymore. That was resolved after the very first release, but I mean, that's hardly a problem. There's going to be, in the next week, another release. I commented on that. If you head over to Reddit/pfBlockerNG, there was an announcement posted, and right here. This is pfBlockerNG 3005. This is not out yet, but this one is coming out. Currently, we're at system. Matter of fact, it's still logged into the same demo system for the video I did this morning. And yes, I did the video this morning and then published it same day. That's a lot of times how that works. There we go. Packages. Retrieving list. pfBlocker. 003 is still the current version until the pull request has been granted. But you can find that over in the subreddit. Reddit.com/r/pfBlockerNG, and yeah. DHCP registration is still a problem. So I guess if you're using DHCP registration, don't upgrade. That is still a problem. I don't know why I'm so yawny today. Sorry about that, folks. But nonetheless, they have all the details worked out inside of here, and you can follow along with the development. That's a beauty when open source is developed like that and shown, is that, you know, you can follow along with the developers and see what's going on there. No, I have not had a problem with the UniFi guest network and not getting a VLAN IP. This seems to come up all the time with people who use USGs. This doesn't come up with people who, at least from my experience, with people who are not using UniFi routing equipment. So people have called us for consulting problems on it. Usually they have USGs, and improper network configs are the most common reason. Yeah. there's a lot of debate. Broadcast traffic's not as bad as it used to be. You can probably get a lot more devices on a network without having problems prior to before. So, yeah, DHCP with the USG. That sounds like a challenge. I gotta admit, I started adding anytime I do a UniFi video that I don't use the USG or routing equipment. I started saying that because of all the problems that people constantly are having with them, and we're like, I don't recommend these. I did a video saying don't recommend these. I comment on every UniFi install we do how we didn't use the USG, and I don't know how else to make it any more clear. They are a very problematic device, and it seems like they have more problems now than, well, before. So that is just, yeah. It is just, they're kind of a headache. I don't know. TrueNAS, did we upgrade it? Yes, we will talk about that. I want to touch on the Fireeye topic, though. And I guess we can go over to Reddit for that as well, because there is a lot of confusion. And let's go here, see if anyone... There we go. I commented, and this is over, oddly in PF Sense, I commented over here. This is what I had said. And this is related to Fireeye and their, subsequent hacking, and we don't have the full report. They stated they were stolen and only consisted of exploits for publicly known vulnerabilities, and the lack of patching that is out there could still be an issue. And this is referring to their tools getting stolen, and they have signatures out there, and people are like, oh, I don't know, can we trust the signatures? And I thought that was, I seen someone probably down there is pointing that out. But let's dive into this a little bit further. Their indicators of compromise is because they most likely built these specialty tools to exploit these known vulnerabilities as part of the red team kits. And this is where sometimes people don't understand. Just because there's a vulnerability does not mean that there is a working tool to properly exploit that. There is a person who may have created the report for the vulnerability. They may have wrote their own tool to build out a proof of concept. That does not always mean they built that tool and then put it out on somewhere where you can publicly access this. A lot of these tooling that gets built, and maybe only very small snippets of the tool as enough to proof of concept the exploit get put out there. So it's not as big of a deal possibly as we thought, or as a lot of people are speculating. It's still a big company getting hit, so it's a big deal. But let's dive down a little further here. Until Fireeye does a full write-up on what happened, we can only speculate if their servers were all patched, or if very poor security guidelines were followed, or if one was missed during this incident. Security is challenging because you have to be right all the time on all the fronts. Threat actors just have to find one thing you did wrong among the 1,000 things you did right. This is a real problem, and this is where I wanted to focus. We don't really know how they got attacked. And they're a big company. They have a lot of things that are potential for attack, both people and server equipment and hardware and all the other things that they use to operate. So we really don't know what happened there. Also, it doesn't sound like, and the really big scary part is, if this were true, is did they get caught up in, did they actually exfil data, not tools, but like reports? That would be the bigger, scarier thing coming out of Fireeye. Just stealing their tool sets is annoying and not good, but also not, if there were just a bunch of tools around known vulnerabilities, if they're the state level actors that has been assumed, it's also kind of a thing where, well, yeah, they're probably not going to run out there and drop their tools out in the wide open. You know what I mean? They're not going to go out and say, hey, I'm going to grab these tools. I'm some nation state actor. I'm going to steal these tools and then dump them out for the public to use. Just doesn't sound like something they would do. Maybe they would add them to their own toolkit, but there's another challenge there. The people who red team things or spend time, hacking into things, they spend time writing and crafting their own tools. Handing that tool to someone else doesn't necessarily mean they understand at all how to use it. Matter of fact, occasionally when people are creating tools that are not for public consumption, they also didn't make public documentation to make them easy to use. So it's not like that it's going to turn off or turn on a bunch of disasters running around in there. So that's why my thoughts on the Fireeye. We'll get to the TrueNAS next. Let's see. Replace 48 with a pfSense HA. We'll go with that. Let's see. Purple teams are important. Yes, hack purple. Does anyone know if the UniFi switch aggregation can be used as a typical 10G switch? I don't see why it couldn't be. I don't see. It's really for the most part. I don't see anything special about it that you can't use it as a say switch. That a lot of times throwing a tag on there, like calling it an aggregation switch, is kind of to imply what you should probably use it for, but doesn't mean the only thing it can be used for. So this is ideal, for example, to have an aggregation switch along with a series of, let's say, 48 ports with 10 gig backhaul. They all need to backhaul 10 gig, so you can put a aggregation switch to be that hub. So as we deployed all these switches to the different IDF rooms, that they all backhaul at 10 gig, and that's a lot of ports, so we need one switch where all of them plug into. So that's common use case would be that, but it doesn't mean it's the only thing it needs to be used for. Now let's talk about and log into. Let's see. Skip over from the Fireeye. You know, a lot of people say Reddit's a dumpster fire. If you want to spend your time arguing about dumb things on Reddit, definitely, there's plenty of dumpster fires that you can join and jump on the pile. If you stay focused on Reddit and stay in certain tech subreddits, and a lot of those are very quick to ban people who get way off topic very quickly. Those are pretty good areas of Reddit where you can get and glean a lot of valuable information. Our sysadmin can be pretty good. Our MSP, I've commented on there. Our pfSense, our pfBlockerNG. These are all good subreddits where there's value and lots of stuff you can talk about with technicians. If you want to venture off into the news section, I'm not going to follow you over there because there's certainly some stupidity and argument going on there. Overall, I still like Reddit, but that's why there's subreddits. By the way, read Alexis Ohanian's book on the founding of Reddit, and you'll find that there was a lot of pushback on whether or not they ever thought there should be subreddits, which now is actually an invaluable part of it, but there's actually some pushback that it's something they weren't going to do. But something I did do was upgrade to TrueNAS, the U1. Matter of fact, what else did I upgrade? Oh, I got this one here. So I got a couple of them upgraded. There we go. So this one's upgraded. This is platform generic, and this one is platform TrueNAS Mini. So yeah, I've upgraded a few of them. I got a few more to do. No issues at all. It works great. I want to dive soon into a video where I'm going to break down all the different OpenZFS stuff, play with the fusion pools, and kind of explain when you want to use which type. So there's a lot to dive into with them. It actually adds a little bit of confusion because there was a few ways to set up ZFS before. There's a few more ways. So that's an exponential problem because, all right, do I build it like this or like this? You just added a couple new types of add-ons for the pool. So now do I build it like this, this, and this, and this? And then times the new add-ons, this, and this again. So now the configuration is going to be even more in-depth and going to have that thing that people hate, it depends. And people always want just, what's the fastest configuration? And that's not, what are you using it for is what you actually have to ask the question and then break down how things need to be done. Let's see here. What's we have? They have changed the way the VLANs are used in menus. Yes, that is something. There's a lot of changes around the VLANs. So, anyone in the Northeast Ohio that wants to be my backup MSP who is fluent in the LTS way of life? Is it a way of life? Is it a lifestyle choice that we like pfSense, XCPNG? What are the feeds in pfBlocker? The feeds in pfBlocker are the things you want to block, whether they're IP lists, whether they're DNS black holes. There's a bunch of them out there, and that's what all the feed information, and of course the debate that may come around of what those feeds are. I've had people complain about the feeds and that it blocked something they liked, and I'm like, I don't have control over them. That came into some discussion. I think I deleted a bunch of people arguing on my YouTube channel about the stupidity of that, of whether or not the feeds were biased in some way. I'm like, they ban sites based on the person who maintains the feed. If you don't like that feed, do your own feed and maintain it and put it together because you don't like some site that was on that list that you think shouldn't be blocked. I don't know. This is why it's kind of a debatable type thing. That's one of the challenges, are a whole lot of the challenges about that. So it's kind of like spam filters. Is it really spam, or did you really want that discount deal offer that they had on there? Matter of fact, I don't really like blocking some of the advertising because, well, I like some of the deals I get. I've got some really good sale items and things like that. And yeah, if I would have blocked those, I wouldn't have gotten them. So I don't know. You tell me which is the better idea. So anyways, what else do we have? TrueNAS pfBlocker. Now, the pfBlocker thing, I just did that whole video on it, and we can install it again. It's easy enough to install pfBlocker. So we'll click install on this system here. Confirm. But this is the one I just did a video on, and I uninstalled it and reinstalled it. So now it's getting put back in. Install goes so fast on it because this is a fast demo system. There we go. Firewall, pfBlocker. Next. 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 Finish. Done. Finish. You can stop here, as I said in the video. You can go through. I walk through why you do the settings you do on there, but the yeah, for the most part, it's relatively quick to get this set up, get this going, and download the updates. It's all the fine tuning. It's the death is in the details of what is it going to connect to, what does it got to do, and does it block sites that make you happy? As I said, I'm not as, I kind of like, if you're going to do some type of filtering, it's easier to do it with like uBlock Origin in the browser, because then you have very fine-grained control and temporary control where you can say temporarily disable this site because I need something and I need the functionality, do the thing you want to do, and then click the button and do it. To do that in pfBlocker, I mean, yeah, you can log into your firewall, you can temporarily change a rule and then change it back later, and that seems like a lot more work and less the way I want to do it. So can I configure IP DNS feeds? What's the difference? Well, DNS versus IP. DNS blocks things by its DNS entry. IP blocks it by its IP address. That's I think that's something. I don't know where to start on that. Try by taking some time to start learning the difference between like IP addresses and DNS entries, and go from there. Kind of depends on what you want. I mean, do you want to block a site? And a site doesn't necessarily have one IP address. That's why you may want to do something by stopping it by DNS, versus if you want to block a range of IPs because we know it's a command and control server for a malicious botnet or something like that, then you block that IP address because it doesn't have a DNS associated with it. We just know that this particular IP address was the command and control server, so that is something you want to block via that. Let's see. Use pfBlocker with Squid. I don't like using Squid. It's if you want to use Squid, go ahead. I have a rant video on why I don't like Squid. Some bug with Brave browser. Yes, I don't know why Brave browser won't work with pfSense. I don't use Brave browser, so I'm not sure. Yeah, and then DOH breaks DNS blocking. And to go a step further, for those of you that didn't know, Cloudflare is working on some new thing also. Cloudflare. It was the latest blog post, I think, that they had. Where did they announce that? Just the other day. I think it's this one here. And improving DNS privacy with oblivious DOH. And they're just working on updating things. What this is part of the problem with the newer DOH. So ODOH is emerging protocol being developed by the IETF. ODOH works by adding a layer of public key encryption as well as a network proxy between clients and DOH servers such as 111. The combination 1111. The combination of these two added elements guarantees that the user has access to both DNS messages and their own IP address at the same time. And basically it's encrypting so no one in between gets to see anything. And this is going to create more nightmares for people who need to do types of filtering. ESNI, so SNI headers are what a lot of firewalls will grab, such as on Tangle, to understand what websites you're going to without adding some type of certificate in between. ESNI, so encrypted SNI, is the next layer that can also obfuscate that header, so now more things are private. Combine that with ODOH, and yeah, it makes filtering that much harder because more things will do this, so it's going to be more and more challenging. The only way you're really going to get filtering soon in the filter world is installing something on the endpoint to actually manage it in order to do that. That comes with its own challenges of managing the certificates that you have to install on the endpoints and then match with the firewall. And then you'll find some things, and this does include, for example, Huntress Labs tool, that don't like being man in the middle. So if you try to man in the middle certain security products, they go, no, we don't want to be man in the middle because that would manipulate the data. So now you're back to creating a problem of, do I trust the man in the middle certificates or not? And does the product have a way to bypass those man in the middle certificates, which also means some other tool may be able to get on there and do it as well. And the mess and ongoing saga continues. Oh, what does the CentOS announcement mean for XCP-NG? I think that's something I probably should have threw in here. And let's read it. There is a specific talk about this, and this is just not, this is right from the XCP-NG team. And it's not the end of the world, but it's a great news headline, right? That I participated in it. I said, CentOS has committed suicide. They're dead. They've destroyed the project. IBM is wrecking the open source world. And there's some truth to it, at least. But that doesn't mean all the projects are going to fall apart and the world's going to be broken. This recent move from Red Hat clearly sad for CentOS users. We'll address that, yes. For XCP-NG, no immediate concerns that CentOS packages we use are from the CentOS 7 and migration to CentOS 8 has not yet started. In addition to this, CentOS does not end. However, people won't be able to trust updates blindly anymore since they won't get all the REHL QA, but since we filter and test the updates before they land in our repositories, they should not change anything for our users, so even if we switch to CentOS 8. In any case, there will be time before we need to decide anything. And someone's asking whether or not it's going to be a switch to Debian. It's not, because there's a lot of changes in there, but it's going to be a change, but you got to remember it's open source. And I have a feeling that there will probably be an exodus of developers who contribute to this, probably protesting it. And there will be a people who fork it. And we don't know what it'll be called, but they'll splinter off and have their own version that gets supported and everything else. And everyone will switch to it. And it'll still be based on all the same code, much how Ubuntu is very much based on Debian, but has finally it's splintered away from it, but there's a strong compatibility because it was originally based on it, and there are other forks already of CentOS. Maybe even one of those forks of CentOS is what we'll be switching to. So is it a big deal? Kind of, because it shouldn't have happened, I think, and it's IBM not understanding things and trying to squeeze some money out of the fancy thing they bought a little while back called Red Hat. But I don't think it's the end of any of these projects. They'll just switch and do things differently and deal with the annoyances, and we'll move on. As a matter of fact, they'll probably still say CentOS based. As far as functionality goes, it may be called something different, but I don't think there's going to be any dramatic shift over to one or the other. So, let's see. IBM took away KDE. Those, yeah. Nice is KDE Foundation is a separate entity again, so definitely a it's a lot to take in to think that they've switched all this from CentOS, but I don't know. I don't think I'm surprised by IBM's move by this. I am surprised at the number of people that have not taken the time to bash the like button, though. It says it right here, bash that like button. Actually, I'm going to pull the Cisco switch out. But bash that like button. There's about, there we go, a few of you did that now. Woohoo! Seeing the numbers go up. So let's take some time to do that. You kind of expected from Oracle, but I thought IBM was better. What world do you live in that you thought IBM was better? I mean, don't get me wrong. They may be better than Oracle, but there's nothing about this move that really surprised me. IBM's known for buying things and smashing them to bits in a way that the market may not like them. They are also kind of like Cisco. If Cisco buys something, they kind of really start grabbing and going, how do we milk the most money out of it? Disney, Star Wars, it happens in other industries too, by the way. But yeah, it's a messy situation for sure. Definitely an issue. What else was in here? TrueNAS update. Oh, let's talk a little bit though about ZFS, because I did tweet that. And find that link. Open that link. This is what I want to dive into. This is some of the exciting stuff. Not as exciting as I know some people are about the Cisco, but I've already got mixed feelings on the Cisco thing. Back over to here. OpenZFS ships with the first on TrueNAS. And this is some really cool stuff here. Fusion pools, metadata on flash. I'm excited about that. Special SSD VDEVs can be used for metadata acceleration and can include both file system metadata and dedupe tables. My understanding, and I haven't dove in deep to this yet, but metadata on flash is great for when you have large amounts of storage with lots of files on it, and being able to have all that metadata so it knows where all that data is. If I understand it correctly, that will go over to these drives and offer a much faster way to do it. I believe I could rewatch Wendell from Level 1 Tech did a good video on that. Fusion pools, special SSD VDEVs, known as OpenZFS parallels as special allocation classes, can be used for data based on I/O write size. That is actually the video I think that Wendell did do, was change some parameters so you can choose I/O write sizes and send data to different parts of groups of drives when you have a mixed speed pool. I think that's an interesting idea. You can accelerate database and dataset or special VMs. I haven't really played with it. I think he had a hacky workaround for it, but that's still, it's going to be some interesting because it gives us some more tools to really finely tune the types of data we're using on there. Dataset encryption. Specific datasets can be encrypted and be selected or deselected for encryption with user-provided keys. Replicating datasets to a TrueNAS key does not have to be provided, so the data can be transmitted and stored in the original encrypted state. I like that. Asynchronous shim, faster boot. Persistent L2 ARC. That's an interesting one because your L2 ARC, your level 2 caching, would not persist across reboots and would have to get reloaded, basically recached from calls. Now, if we have to reboot a server, that persistent L2 ARC means, well, those files that were already in the L2 ARC pulled off of the slower storage and put in the faster storage are now immediately available upon reboot without having to repopulate the cache. I think that's a really cool one there. With the original ZFS is a data management unit and an algorithm for copy and write. These algorithms were implemented in a synchronous manner, which required a transaction to wait till another transaction was completed. IX systems contributed to the conversion of these algorithms to asynchronous approach, reduces the amount of wait time and increases parallelism in OpenZF 2.0. An added benefit is fewer disk IOs are needed for sequential writing. This increases drive efficiency and reduces latency of our heavy workloads. I also want to do a little bit of playing. Someone had asked about this, and it's going to be rebuilding VMs and testing them at different 128, 256, and 512 to figure out which one's more efficient for speed testing when you're using it as a VM storage device. Now, there's also something that's not mentioned in here, but is mentioned in, where is it at? There was a link to the Ars Technica article right here. this is what's really cool. Sequential resilvering. The rebuilding of degraded arrays historically been very different from conventional RAID on nearly empty arrays for ZSL rebuild. They basically redid this, but this process has involved a lot of random I/O, so more nearly full arrays. Conventional RAIDs are more pedestrian block-by-block HODOS rebuild. With sequential resilvering, ZFS gets the best of both worlds, largely sequential access, still skipping unused portions of the disk when involved. This is just a really neat, I know I skipped over a little bit of it. This is a really neat feature. So basically, we're going to be able to rebuild faster and skip over that. This is one that I think is weird, but it's neat. Redacted replication. And it's, I like that they said it right. This one's a brain bender. Let's say there are portions of your data you don't want backing up using ZFS replication. First, you clone the data set. Next, you delete the sensitive data from the clone. Then you create a bookmark on the parent data set, which marks the blocks which changed from the parent clone. Finally, you can then send the parent clone to its backup target, including the redaction underscore bookmark argument, and this replicates the non-sensitive blocks only on the backup target. And I think that's just an interesting thing. Someone asked me if it was granular, and I said no, because that was the correct answer about doing granular types of replication. Now, it's called for sensitive, but actually there may be something you don't want replicated. You want the data set, except this stuff here doesn't need to be replicated every time because it's just not, you want it in one data set for convenience, but you don't want it replicated. The answer before was always put them in different data sets and only replicate the data sets you want. This is another option in there. So I think that's a really cool. These are some really neat features in the ZFS 2.0. Wendell could be a sentient AI system running in a Linux kernel. I'm not going to argue with that. There's definitely a chance of that. I've met him a couple times. I still believe it. He does say, teaching Stan to think was a mistake, so there is that. How would that Cisco switch be for CCNA labbing? That's something I'm going to answer right now, and I think it probably wouldn't be because it's not. I don't know what features are missing, and that's what I need to make sure I find it. There's some write-ups that I just haven't read through yet. It is not full Cisco iOS, and this is something I want to detail out when I do my review, that these Cisco switches may have some features missing or limitations placed upon them to get them in the lower budget range. They will probably be an excellent small business switch and excellent for even a lot of large networks. But if you're doing a CCNA lab, you're probably going to be wanting to use a full version of Cisco, so anything you do in lab can be done in here. Now, this is where, because I've not done my Cisco testing and I don't have any interest in doing it, if you were to go through some Cisco testing, I don't know where those limitations are of what the gaps are. What part of the lab couldn't you do? I don't know. You could do some of the basic switch config, so it's probably good for getting started, but I don't know which one of those advanced features are missing. So that could be a whole different challenge there. Oh, thank you for your previous videos on pfSense. Awesome. You were able to replace some Zyte cells. Good going, Chuck. Happy that you switched over. Yeah, no full labs, go back to packet switcher. Yeah, I don't know if you're going to be able to do full lab on this. I might be wrong, but I don't have that direct comparison. Either way, I will, when I do the review, dive into what it's missing, because that's going to be the interesting part. And yeah, there's just stuff it doesn't do. Took the CCNA and then you moved on to Red Hat. You still stayed at the command line. Yeah, packet tracer is probably your, because it's full featured. People ask me to do videos on it, and I kind of don't have a use case for that. I'm not your CCNA teacher because I'm not a CCNA. I'm a network engineer, but I'm not a specifically Cisco network engineer. I'm a generic, boring network engineer, just normal generic one, not specific to any one product. So I study network engineering, but not specific, like I said, to the Cisco. So that's why I can't answer some of the Cisco ones. Forget Cisco. Go bare metal switches. Go VyOS. If you're going to go bare metal switches, go VyOS. I kind of want to learn it because it seems fun. I kind of don't have the time to learn it, despite the fact that it seems a lot of fun. On other notes, things that are coming up are videos on Security Onion. I dove deep into a project of building out a full packet sniffing Security Onion with port mirrors and port taps. So I have a couple videos I need to do to show how port mirroring and port tapping works. I'm going to have that video lead up to the video before Security Onion. That way I can reference this is how you set up port taps or port mirrors, because that's something that's required to get Security Onion fully up and running. And there's a couple different ways to do it, which of course I want to make sure when I do the build video for Security Onion, I explain in depth of how it actually functions. Yeah, VyOS is amazing. I mean, I've played with it a little bit and I said, this is cool. It's just a matter of taking the time to learn it. And I don't have a use case. So my best learning comes from when I have a use case to deploy something and really configure it and get it going. When I don't, it becomes like a cool little, I play with this for a minute and I'll set it aside going, I don't know what to do with this thing. So I set it aside. But I've dabbled a little bit with VyOS. I mean, I get it. I think it's a really slick system. Matter of fact, oddly, the people from VyOS have reached out to me and wanted me to do videos and wanted to sponsor the channel, but I didn't want to take the time to learn it. And I don't know, I don't know what they were going to pay me, and I don't know if it would have been enough to make it worth my time or not. I also feel weird when I do sponsored videos, but I guess if you're sponsoring a tutorial of an open source product, that might be a different type of that. Something to think about. I will probably have a sponsor at some time on the channel, but when I do the sponsorship, it's going to be very brief and short and not a normal sponsorship spot. And what I mean by that is I'm not going to use a mattress company or a VPN company for the sponsorship. So there's that. Let's see here. Yeah, VyOS. I like the name, VyOS. But I don't know. I don't know that there's enough market demand. It's kind of a niche product. I mean, it's cool, it's powerful, but how many people want to go back to configuring firewalls from the command line? That's the real question we have here. I can't really see getting away from the command line, but there's times when the command line is more efficient, and there's times when it's more difficult. And you can definitely test VyOS in a VM. Not only can you test VyOS in a VM, this is actually a good question that someone had, and we'll say VyOS XCP-NG. There we go. XCP-NG and VyOS partnership. You can run VyOS on XCP-NG. They've certified that VyOS works quite well on there with all the features it has. So they've worked together. The VyOS works natively inside of XCP-NG with no special features or special things you need to do. We are now preparing to offer ready-made use images, which is also another feature for using the full version of Xen Orchestra. And yeah, so this is all happiness right here together. So if you want to run VyOS inside of XCP-NG, absolutely you can. They are officially compatible, not just like someone telling you they work. They're actually working together. So maybe worth the video, I don't know. Here's the thing, it's 100% command line driven. I don't know where the market demand is for walking through command line driven firewalls. It's neat. It does fast routing. It does, but what does it do over pfSense? There might be some use case. It actually has some use cases for building switches. When someone had mentioned bare metal switching, I'm looking because they're not in reach. If you grabbed a few switches and you have a motherboard capable of having a backplane that works well enough and fast enough, you could build a hardware x86 switch. But honestly, it's more cost effective at that point. Buy a MikroTik. Yes, you heard me say it right here on this channel. Buy a MikroTik if you're looking for a cheap, inexpensive switch that's got 10 gig. There's a guy who made a good video on how to configure VyOS. the video's got a few views because mostly it's about how to build your own 10 gig switch using a bunch of cards and setting the backplane. But also, if you look at how much work that is, and you look at how inexpensive a MikroTik is with 10 gig, it's almost like build this whole computer that has all kinds of trouble and fine-tuning issues to get it to work with 10 gig, or spend $129 on a MikroTik to get 4 10 gig ports. I just trying to figure out where I like the learning challenge, but also I don't know. I don't know if I'm compelled enough. It's very niche. Exactly. I wouldn't say it's good video content. I would bet it gets very few views. That's part of the problem. No one would really watch it either. So I would spend hours and hours creating a piece of content that very few people would watch. It would make a couple people happy that asked me about it, and that's about it. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely how, by the way, speaking of configuring Cisco, that's actually what I'm right here doing, is doing this from the command line. And already it's kind of like, I know it's one of the things I'm going to cover on this. It's also going to be some of the problems people have with this is you don't have to configure this one. It's got a web interface, but the web interface is a little lacking. It doesn't even have some of the features that you can find in some other devices with their web interfaces. And I think this is where Cisco's going, yeah, our goal is you want something that is, like could have made this easier to set up. But if you want something easier, buy our Meraki with our licenses and it'll magic configure. I think Cisco has a challenge of, we want to enter the marketplace because we realize there's a massive amount of small businesses out there. And this is basically the backbone of what UniFi was put in on, is all these small offices that need just a handful of switches. And Cisco realized that people have a bunch of UniFi equipment more so than they're having Cisco equipment. Matter of fact, we've replaced a ton of old, antiquated Cisco equipment or just failing stuff. You know, it's over 10 years old. It was time to replace it. And we're dropping in UniFis because Cisco can't compete with the ease of deployment, ease of management you get with the UniFi, and for the price, I can buy spare UniFis for cheaper than I can buy some of Cisco. So then they come out with these Catalyst 1000 series with no license fees and local dashboard management, but they can't put all the features in or it would compete with their other products. So they kind of have to make them a little bit simpler. So Ansible config of UniFi or other network gear. You wouldn't use Ansible with UniFi. UniFi doesn't really have a way to SSH in and change settings. Okay, very technically you can. It would be a terrible idea. So I wouldn't do it. The Ansible with UniFi, you can disconnect the UniFi from the controller and manually write config files for it. I think that would be doing everything the hard way because they built such a nice methodology to do it. But you can SSH into UniFi devices and mess with the configs. So, or you could even write something that changes things in MongoDB and pushes it out. But at some point, UniFi did that. They put an interface on it already that covers things quite well and does function and work. So, pushing out SSH configs to things like or Ansible type configs to Cisco or some of the other devices, that probably makes more sense when you have to mass deploy these. But this is also what it takes for someone to change a config in UniFi, or the skill set it takes to build an Ansible script and a playbook in order to deploy a Cisco, are two different pay grades. And right now, we are constantly short on the number of people that know how to push Ansible scripts properly without breaking things. So it's easier to train someone and go, all right, here's how you do VLANs on UniFi, and explaining VLANs on Cisco is going to take hours versus it's minutes. The videos are going to be way shorter on me talking about how to do something UniFi. This is one of the reasons making things easier makes it for a better experience for a lot of users, and it means we can get more equipment installed and you don't have to have a bunch of high-end technicians. This is just one of the problems when it comes to dealing with building network gear. Do you want to make it harder for people to use, to just everything be the command line, or do you want to make it easy for the masses? Microsoft built their Office products, making it easy for the masses. Combine that with Windows and some marketing, and now you have the Microsoft ecosystem. Because, well, I mean, we could have just sat down using, what was that, not command line, but, you know, terminal-based spreadsheet system, or what was the other Word something. There was a couple different ones that used to do everything with a whole series of tagging and stuff like that for capitalization. This is all, terminal-based, DOS-based word processing. Why do we ever have to move beyond that? You were really good at it. You could set all the formatting and set all the typesetting that way. WordPerfect, but it was before WordPerfect. It was another one, but you get the idea. WordPerfect was one of them too. Spend hours, automate, quicker to config. So we don't know how Russia hacked Fireeye. We have no idea. That is something we're waiting on the debrief. I seen someone ask that. So WordStar and Lotus. Yeah, that's the one I was looking for. A PowerShell script that spits out a text file base on a CSV and then paste in CLI. Yeah, so kind of related to that, one of the things you can do, and we've seen a few people do this. This is where I think pfSense kind of has the best of both worlds. If you're inside of pfSense, and where's my pfSense login? Here we go. And let's go ahead and diagnostics, backup restore, download XML file. Let's open it up. And it's all just standard XML. Now, what's great about this is you can now modify it. So I have the power of pfSense. I have all these wonderful things that I can do inside the UI here, which is great. But if I want to make a group of changes, for example, I want to build out 100 VLANs, I really don't think I want to go to interface, assignment, VLAN, add, and run through this 100 times. That sounds like an awful experience. And that's no fun at all. By the way, this is a virtualized one. That's why the VLANs aren't showing up in here. So the solution would be grab the XML file, create one VLAN, grab the XML file, look at what it creates, look at the rules. Matter of fact, go a step further. Create firewall rules, create all the rules of how you want that done inside that VLAN, make all those changes, do a differential between when you first built it, then the second differential between the XML file for when you did, so you can understand the changes in the XML file, then implement those changes at scale inside the XML file, make those changes over and over again, changing just the IP address and the tag number for the VLAN, and then re-upload that XML file, and now you've got the best of both worlds, where I can use a web UI for most things, but when I have some repetitive task, I can easily go in, grab the XML file, push that setting back in, and apply all those VLANs, and away we go without having to do a bunch of manual entries. So there's definitely some room for things like that. So let's see. Yeah, WordPerfect had Alt and Control keys. I remember I used to do some of the tagging in there to get the things moving. It was always kind of cool. I played with that years and years and years ago. So, how easy can you take a snapshot in TrueNAS and present it to another XCPNG without formatting? I don't know how you would even do that. Yeah, Willie Howe did do a video on how to do that in Excel. I think he did it with an edge router for throwing in a bunch of VLAN information. Same concept, exactly. Still a few things using XML. Yeah, XML's fine. Yeah, use JSON now instead of XML. No about network print queues. But I don't understand at all what you're trying to take a snapshot of and move it. So that's probably a better forum post, because that sounds like not the way to do whatever it is you're doing. I'm not exactly clear what you're trying to do there. So, oh, you wanted to say, I do appreciate it. So I've made learning networking easier. Good. That's actually a goal I have. I want more people in tech. I would love to see more people learning command line. I don't know if I'm the person to teach it. And most of the time when people really want to learn command line, they grab a book. Most of the people I know that are really good at that, and I'm included in that, for how'd you learn Linux, Tom? Book. How'd you learn Linux was not from video. Maybe some people do learn it in video form. And I will tell you, Jay Learn Linux TV has some great videos. If you want to learn Vi, Vim, TMUX, and he did some Ansible videos. I have an Ansible video I did with Phil. So I know that content's out there. I don't know if I'm the one that should be producing all of it. Because, by the way, Jay writes books. That's why Jay from Learn Linux TV, he's an author of some Linux books. That's why he's also really good at putting content together and making very, very technically accurate videos on there. So if you check his channel out, it's definitely a lot of deep dives into that. Three comms that would only accept MAC address beginning in 00. That's interesting. The best CLI? Oh, Vim. Vim all day. Vim all day, every day. There's no question. So that's, yeah, man pages, read them. I read the man pages quite a bit. IRTFM quite a bit. I actually had a challenge when I set up Security Onion, and I haven't found a solution for this. There's different ways to build it, and one of the problems I ran into was Ubuntu server runs NetPlan, and NetPlan doesn't have a way to config at boot time promiscuous mode. So there's like silly workarounds I had to do. And there's ways to replace NetPlan. So like that was one of my challenges setting it up, was I couldn't figure out why it wouldn't sniff properly. I'm going to break down some of those details because I also want to reach out to the team and kind of explain what I found. I got to see if they have any pull requests on this, because I think there should be, I made some notes of where the workarounds are of how to get NetPlan into promiscuous mode, but I don't, yeah, it's kind of an argument, because I actually, when you dive that deep into some of those Linux problems, you find out that NetPlan won't do it, and there is people asking them to do it, and this is where I spend a lot of my time learning. When you know, I never really took the time to understand NetPlan as well. I've always used your standard network configs inside of Linux, but NetPlan has a different style. I think it's all YAML files, and it's a pain. I don't like YAML files as much because one of the problems I created for myself was the YAML file have to have perfect indentation or it doesn't work, and it may not tell you why it's not working. So once problem A was solved, we went back onto problem B of getting network interfaces in promiscuous mode. Not a fan of NetPlan either. All right. No, TrueNAS does not do active replication. You cannot, that would be synchronization. Active replication is synchronization. You can't have two data sets on physically separate servers in sync with each other. So, but you can, and they do make high availability where you can have two active controllers for failover, but that's not the same as, you know, having active data. At some point, if you need active data, you got to dive into things like Gluster or Ceph, where you load that as another layer on top to have redundancy of your data, and that is a much more extensive build out when you start talking about tying servers together. This is actually why TrueNAS Scale is being built. It's going to be built, and it's going to have Gluster natively built in, and you're going to be able to take several TrueNAS Scale servers and it's scale out. So there's scale up, as in we stack some servers on top, and there's scale out. And what that means is we're going to have a series. Let's say we have 3 of the same servers and we tie them together with Gluster. They will act themselves as a RAID array, so the data is spread across those particular servers. Let's see. Borg backup for its deduplication and compression seems to be fast and compatible with multi-terabyte data sets. Well, OpenZFS is a file system versus Borg backup. I'll Google it real quick. I don't think it's a file system. I've never used it. What is Borg backup? In short, Borg is a deduplicating backup program. Well, OpenZFS is a file system. Borg backup is a deduplicating program. So you're conflating things a bit here. They're different animals. So you can't compare Borg backup to OpenZFS. It would be kind of like comparing this Cisco switch to this cup of water. They're very different things. Well, for those of you that want to see the link to Borg backup, it's right here. Looks interesting. Borg Backup is a deduplicating program. The main goal of Borg Backup is to provide efficient and secure way to backup data. The data duplication technique used to make Borg suitable for daily backups, since it only changes the stored authenticated encryption technique, makes it suitable for backups that are not fully trusted targets. Okay, it's another backup program. Sounds interesting. Haven't used it. I don't know. I don't have a use case for it, would probably be how I would state that. I guess I have to have something that needs that level of backup that I would need to do this on here for. What is the best way to back up a bare metal pfSense? Good thing you asked that. Just download the config file. That's all you have to do. So go over here, diagnostics, backup restore. That's it. Keep a copy handy of your pfSense. You do not need to do full images of the operating system. There is no need for that. If you break the operating system, you just reload it. And among the things you can do while you're reloading it is specify the file and do it at the time of reload, or just reload it clean and restore that file. As soon as you get to the web interface, just go to the backup and restore your config file. Done. That's it. There's nothing else you really have to do to get that working. I've had people ask if they try to do full backups on there, and it's just not practical. Also, services, auto config backup. You can configure this as well. This is a free service from the folks over at Netgate. They do automatic configuration backups. Once again, you can specify with your device to re-pull those backups on there. It does force you to create a password. They only keep an encrypted copy of your XML file, but this does allow you to create backups and have it automatically back up as you go, because if you are not diligent, you will forget to back up some of the changes. And we had someone who did this. We set a pfSense up for them, and they made a ton of changes. They didn't create any backup files. We had them back up after we had created it, and they had that backup file from like 6 months later. And they had lightning strike, literal lightning, not the proverbial, and destroy their pfSense along with lots of other things. And we're like, okay, where's your backup file? And they're like, oh, I have one on my computer. Okay, that was from when we initially set it up. Didn't you add a bunch of things? Yeah. They're like, can you get the files out of it? And I'm like, oh, we'll try. But the system was literally fried from lightning. And no, I was not able to get the files out. So using that's actually something I probably would recommend to people. Backup. So, yes. When did Netgate allow free backups? It's been a couple years. They used to charge for it as part of their premium service 2 or 3 years ago. It's now free. It's been free for a while. Maybe I should do a video on that. How do you shrink a VDI? I don't know. I've never shrunk one, so I am not sure. You know, I could always try something. Matter of fact, I should probably try something and close all these tabs that are open. Let's see what happens when we shrink one. I was going to destroy one of these anyways, so let me stop this. All right, that one stopped. This one's on TrueNAS. Disk 60. Oh, I guess it doesn't work. Okay, you cannot resize. I don't think there's a way to do it. You could always clone it to a smaller VM. That would be a way to do it. You take this and clone it, and that would be a solution. By the way, someone, let me see if it's in here. So go to this, Clonezilla. Someone had asked me about this, and I don't know why this was so confusing as a post in my forums. I've suggested this to a few people. And right here's Clonezilla. And we're going to go ahead and go to advanced, and we'll make sure the DVD drive is on, and it's the top boot. So save, console, go here. And I can't remember if I've even done a video on this. Maybe I should do one, because this is clearly confusing to people, more so than I thought it should be. Let me go look. I can't remember if I do videos on things occasionally, but maybe I did. I know I'm not the only one who has done one. Nope, I don't have a Clonezilla video. Okay, I have an apt clone video, but not a Clonezilla. Maybe I'll do a Clonezilla video because it'd be pretty easy to do. What Clonezilla does is just a cloning software. It's open source, it's free, and we can then clone this system over the network. The network can actually be here inside this VM. So we start this version of Clonezilla, and what is it here? There we go. Just hit enter and let this boot. So if we Clonezilla here, and then we Clonezilla another one as a listener, we can then clone even though it's inside of here. And we could start with if the clone can support downsizing, which is always tricky because upsizing a disk is easy, downsizing it's a pain. But then we have this 60 gig. And usually I'm cloning, I've actually had to clone before when we're just cloning to different machines or different virtual machines. But either way, you can change the size of the destination on there. And but yeah, Clonezilla will go and expand it to the other one. And this is another way to get the data off of here. You just run through the Clonezilla wizard, set it up as a listening or a broadcasting on this side and listening on the other, and it'll do network transfer. And that network transfer, by the way, happens really, really fast when both of the VMs are physically on one machine. So yeah, that's another methodology by which you can do that. So yes, Borg backup handles deduplication and compression. Yeah, that's something it does have in common, but it's obviously a very different thing. It does have that in common with ZFS. What do you think of OpenSense? No, I don't use it. I don't really use OpenSense. I don't have a use case for that. People ask me about it. It's a fork of pfSense. And so I don't have a real, it doesn't compel me to use it. It doesn't have a feature set that makes me think I really need it. Thinking about trying out Pop! OS. So are there any benefits of choosing the short-term release over the long-term? I go the short-term release. That we get the latest features. I always am on the short-term release. I don't use the LTS version of, I don't stick with a version, I should say. I always want the latest version of Pop! OS. So, any reason you'd recommend moving to XCP-NG if you're running ESXi? Because you want all the features of XCP-NG. So you can use ESXi as long as you want. If you prefer it and it works, don't switch. If you like open source and freedom and lots of features, switch, because I know the free version has some limitations. And no, I'm not an expert to tell you what those limitations are. I don't know exactly the limitations of the free ESXi version, but XCP-NG I know has more features than ESXi. But if you are happy and you don't feel like tinkering with it, don't switch. If you want the more features, definitely switch. I don't know if Sandy Bridge has any issues. I'm running a ThinkPad L480 with Pop! OS, and I have a custom-built Ryzen desktop. I have a video about my Ryzen editing system, is what it's called, that runs Pop! OS. And we've run Pop! OS on a lot of different things, and that had any problems, so I'm not sure. Google the specific problems you're having and see if there's a solution, but yeah, I'm not. It runs pretty, I've thrown Pop! OS. Ubuntu is what Pop! OS is based on, and Ubuntu just has amazing hardware support. I have found it to work on so many different things out of the box with no special config, lots of different random wireless cards and wireless devices, and no issues. So, okay, you went from, moved over from CentOS to Pop! OS. And it's been great. Yes, probably a good thing you moved over from CentOS, by the way, in light of recent IBM announcements. Had issues running XE and 8.2 on a spare PC that was running 8.1 fine. There are certain compatibility issues you can run into. XCP-NG I have found reasonably compatible with all the different things we've tested. Matter of fact, there is a Dell Optiplex 9020 setting back here that is literally running this that we have behind me. So this Dell Optiplex is nothing particularly special. Go over here to hosts. Let's see, what is the IP address? Dell Optiplex 9020. Yeah, running 8.2. And I don't know, nothing special about it. Let's go over here. Eh. All right, and kept. Oh, is NeoFetch part of this? Aw, too bad. Slash Etsy. Or actually slash. So this is a Intel Core i7 at 3.6 gig. I don't know. I think this is probably a Sandy Bridge. It works fine on this Dell. I mean, there's nothing special about it, but I've actually found XCP-NG to be very compatible with a lot of different things. We've thrown lots of random computers, like a Dell we had sitting in the office for recycling that is just running XCP-NG perfectly fine. So I don't know. What key do you hit in a CLI for autocomplete? Tab. Tab, 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 tab will autocomplete things. Just, you can tab your way through. It's called bash completion. It's actually natively and defaultly loaded in most of the Ubuntu distributions I've tried. I think it's loaded in a lot of the Debian ones too, I think, but I'm not positive. I know I load it all the time if it's not. Anytime it's not loaded, I load it. I had to work on a CentOS machine the other day, and right away, that's the first thing I loaded. I'm like, oh, I'm missing bash completion, so... Yeah, all my commands and tab, 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 tab. That's pretty much... i5 motherboard, Intel motherboard. Intel motherboard should be particularly compatible, so I don't know. You'll have to look through the boot messages and try and figure out why it's not booting and what it's hanging on. I don't know. I love the disk encryption on Pop! OS. They have done a great job of the way they do that. So... it's the way they do the full disk encryption, not just the home drive encryption, is a definite solid yes for me for the way Pop! OS does it. I really like that feature because, well, this is my work laptop, and my work laptop has passwords and things open all the time, and on and off chance that this laptop were to wander off, I wouldn't want anyone to get at any of the files, so I have a boot password to turn this on. It keeps you that much more happy in terms of security. Don't look up the current talk about systemd managed home directories. Hey, why not? That sounds like a real fun discussion. And I always like this. Savaged by... I love that this is in my search history now. This is so funny every time I see it. My friend Michael Lucas, who's been on this channel, who is an amazing author of all kinds of technical books. This is also one of his less technical books. Change address. What? Why does it think I'm in Saudi Arabia? That's my address. All right. Must have been the link I clicked. But Savage by systemd. Yes. An erotic Linux, Unix encounter. And that's my office address before anyone says something. Our office address is public information because you can Google it and find it. Have I had a look at Windows? So my problem was, and this is going to become another challenge in the market. It's not about whether or not Linux gaming is right for you. It's about whether or not the game you want is on Linux. And I can't remember the game I was trying. There was no Linux support because of the anti-cheat system not working, and it was one of the problems. And my understanding that's one of the new challenges. Someone had commented. I can't remember who it was. It was one of my friends was in a discussion about this. The running it in Linux got them banned from a server because the anti-cheat recognized Linux and then permabanned them. They couldn't get it repealed. They had to set up a different account or something. There was some controversy, and it was part of something on Reddit where the discussion was in one of the Linux gamings. It was, and I get it, it's aggravating. You get banned, and you were doing a supported thing because they had a Linux support, but the anti-cheat flagged it for being Linux and thought they were being hacked. So that can be a problem. Yeah, so there's more challenges than just the game working. It's whether or not it's an online game with an anti-cheat. Now, for me, when I was playing The Division, my understanding, and I didn't dive deep into this, was that was a game I went through. I played The Division, then I played The Division 2. I really enjoyed both of those games, and the anti-cheat things and getting it working inside of Linux looked like it would be more time than I felt like putting effort into. So I just kind of, Oh, Destiny 2 will ban you. I think that's the game that someone was talking about, was Destiny 2. They got banned on their account because of the running it inside of Linux. Yeah, I do all of my work on Linux. My gaming PC is my gaming PC. It just kind of, I just use it for gaming and not anything else. As a matter of fact, my logins are all separate. I don't log into anything. I don't even log into my email or anything on my gaming PC. I have personal things I log into there that I actually never really log into on my work PC. I just keep these lives, so to speak, separate. So, what's my favorite game? I finally, after I liked Borderlands, which I'm excited when I've been playing Borderlands 3. I beat all the other ones. Borderlands 3, I beat that. I went through all the new content. I don't have a favorite game. I have games I focus on and play until I beat all the content and I kind of get done playing them. Then I did the Division 1. I did Division 2. I did Division 1 2 years ago. Division 2. I did play for quite. I have a lot of hours into Diablo. Maybe when a new version comes out of that, I'll play Diablo again. I did like that. Currently, I am playing The Witcher 3. So, let's see. What do we have here? Apple, Linux, favorite. Steam cries a little. Maybe a Raspberry Pi 8 gig does Pop! OS. And I don't know if they're going to recompile Pop! OS for there. Also, I was disappointed. I have Ubuntu loaded on this one, and I didn't like it. I was really unimpressed with it. I don't know. The Pop! OS, Ubuntu, Raspberry Pi is not bad, but it really needs a lightweight interface. Kali, when I did my Kali video, I think it worked really well because it has a lightweight interface. Once you get a heavier interface like GNOME, it just doesn't perform that well. Raspberry Pis are a little bit underpowered for the graphics. So it works, it's functional, it's just not fast. And they've been optimizing it more and more. So yeah, I don't know if they're going to recompile Pop! OS for it. I don't really see a need to either. I don't think you're going to get a wonderful desktop experience in 2020 on a Raspberry Pi 4. Raspberry Pi 5, maybe. Maybe they'll really improve it. I know there's a lot of development going on in ARM. Maybe Raspberry Pi 5 will be the year of the really good interfaces on it because they'll have, as technology progresses, the interface will run better. But I don't know. We'll have to kind of wait and see. Yes, we still run FreePBX. Yes, we still host it internally. I haven't had a reason not to. That hasn't changed. Can you set up pfBlocker remote Linux VPS with OpenVPN? I don't know why you'd want to do that. That seems a confusing way to run things. Just run a Pi-hole remotely if that's what makes you happy. Kubernetes is removing Docker support. I don't use Kubernetes. I don't really use Docker, so no thoughts at all. I ranted last week about Docker, so see my last rant video about Docker, but yes. TrueNAS does have HA. You can buy the M50 series, for example, that have HA. I've reviewed TrueNAS HA on this channel previously. So yes, there is an HA option when it comes to TrueNAS. What else do we have here? We're winding down to the errata of asking Tom questions. Yeah, they're not really removing Docker, it's Docker shim. I've seen that. I've seen people ask me about it, and I'm like, I'm not the Kubernetes guy, so exactly why would I get Twitter messages on that? It's not my specialty of building out Kubernetes systems. I think it's a nice system, don't get me wrong. I'm not against it. It's not part of my daily usage. And I kind of ranted about that last week of why I still prefer, maybe I'm old school, maybe it's the gray hair. I still like solid VMs on things, so... Oh, let's see. What video's coming in next week? Cisco, and depending on how inspired I am, TrueNAS and Security Onion. Those are the ones I want to work on next. How do you create a RAID 5 and sync systems are in different locations? You don't use RAID 5 with TrueNAS. You use ZFS, and then you use ZFS replication. I have a video on ZFS replication. I don't think we're going to see a Pi with socketed memory, because as soon as you start adding socketed memory, you start driving up the cost. The ESXi on Pi sounds great for a headline. I don't see the more practical use case for it. It's a novel thing, but not a... There's nothing practical about that. At least I can't come up with a practical reason why I'd want to do that. The overhead of running a hypervisor only slows down the Pi more. It's just something that maybe doesn't make as much sense as I think it should. I don't know. 2020 pandemic has not been bad to us at all. We're busy. We're in tech. Tech is busier than ever, so that's less an impact to us. There is not a one-to-many management, but you can use Zabbix for managing multiple pfSense boxes. Yeah, I think it's a great learning tool to play with the Raspberry Pi with the ESXi. It's just a learning tool, though, and it's not... I don't think it's very practical. That's at least I have... Maybe someone hasn't shown me yet the use case that makes it a incredibly practical thing. So... that's probably where our problem is. So if you have a practical use case for it, awesome. If you don't, then I don't know. Then we got to go from there on it. But I'm winding this down. Yeah, Docker probably makes a little bit more sense because it's thinner. So maybe using Docker might make a little bit more sense. So try that instead. What else do we have here? I don't think I have anything else. Does anyone else have anything else? Because I just realized it's getting close to 6 o'clock. Oh, home wiring video. Let me pull this up real quick. I think I didn't mention the hot sauce of the day, but it's in the photo. It's not really hot sauce. It's these. This is the ghost pepper spicy chicken flavor. This stuff is amazing. I just ordered a box of this. This stuff is really good. So there's that. We didn't mention hot sauce, but like I said, it's not really sauce, but it's really good. But I did take a picture of something that I'll be doing a video on. And one is my rack is about completed at my house. I have a few more things to do in my basement, so I'll talk about home wiring. I think I did mention that. And but I'll also talk about I don't know if I have a picture of it. No, maybe I don't. I have all the UniFis I'm using for my home and how to plan for that for a home user. I want to kind of focus on the home user because I know a lot of people want to use it in their home and build it out that way. So I want to do a video kind of dedicated to that particular topic. Also, this is something funny that I did take a picture of. I took it apart because I wanted to see what was inside and how it looked because I've had this for over 20 years. This is a line conditioner that I've been using since the company it used to belong to is long since out of business. And I might do a video diving into a little bit about line conditioning. Everyone seems to love to ask me about UPSs and why I don't have one. So I'll talk about I'll be talking about how to do the line conditioner. How about a rack wiring video? I have a rack wiring video I did all of about a week ago. So I already have a rack wiring video. How do you bypass ISP NAT to allow inbound connections? 0 tier? I don't know. There's no easy way to do that. You can't, I mean, there are, yes, someone got it right in there. What was that software called? This is kind of neat if you haven't heard of it. I haven't used it, but someone pointed out and I thought this was kind of cool. Public URLs for SSH access to your Raspberry Pi. This is kind of a neat tool called ngrok. And ngrok allows you to get around this. Now, please note, pricing. No risk to try, free forever. One online ngrok process, 4 tunnels, and 40 connections a minute. Need thousands of process, blah, blah, blah. It's basically a way to get around some of those things. I thought about playing around with it because it looks kind of novel as a solution. It's not a free or open source solution. It's just a solution, but it's relatively cheap one at like $60 billed annually to have custom subdomains, reserved domains. But when you have processes you need to get around there, it seems like a neat way to get around stuff. So I don't know. Something else, thinking about running tunnels, how it works. Download ngrok, connect your service, access from anywhere. Demo websites without deploying, run personal cloud services from your home. It seems like something a lot of home users would probably like, and it does solve the carrier grade NAT and carrier grade NAT, CGNAT as it's called, where a lot more carriers don't have enough public IP space, so they push everything behind here, and people are going, hey, I don't have access to public IPs, but I want to host this service. And this seems like kind of a neat solution and a workaround for that. So let's see. CGNAT and thinking OPN site to site. There's not always ways to do it. I mean, once you're behind the firewall of them, there's not a way to get the there's not a way to get around it. I mean, you have to get them to port forward, and they're not going to. Well, they might, but yes, it's not likely they will. Home labs with high availability. Can we solve the why is my internet not working and other family issues? Yeah. Doesn't everyone run dual WAN at home? Right. Yeah, and you can build things like building, and once again, it comes back to the not free problem. You can go set something up in DigitalOcean, and then you can create tunnels from your local network to the DigitalOcean and forward all the ports. It's a very complicated config. It's not impossible to do, but now you're paying DigitalOcean to have a server that forwards ports through a VPN tunnel that tunnels all the way back to you. Is that better, or is setting up this little ngrok process better? Someone's getting money. It depends on who. Actually, if you sign up for DigitalOcean, I have an offer code down below, so I guess it's better if Tom gets the money. That's my opinion of it. So, tools for pen testing your home lab. Run Kali Linux. Run OpenVAS. Run Kali Linux with OpenVAS to start looking for things. Run Nmap. Learn Nmap. There's a lot of good tutorials on Nmap and how to scan your network. Those are some of your best tools for pen testing things, is just figure out what's opened up, and using Nmap is a great way to start. So that's probably a good one there. Kali Linux is free. Lots of tools to get you ideas of how to start poking at things, and then run Nmap to find out the things that you may have thought were closed and were open. Matter of fact, I've encouraged people to do this. Whenever you build out a guest network, don't assume you did it right. Run through some scans. Try to play the mode of how do I attack this network as a guest, and that way you can understand whether or not your guest networks have that, being able to dive into it. So Nmap's a great tool. There's a couple people that actually did some solid in-depth videos, not the lightweight videos for Nmap. So Nullbyte, I can't Nmat for tactical reconnaissance. Actually, subscribe if you're looking for some more in depth. I know someone had commented, Network Chuck did it. I didn't watch his video, but I know not all of his videos go very in depth. Some do, some don't. But if you check out Null Bytes YouTube channel, hands down, some super solid content for diving into these things. It's also 666 subscribers. That's great. But this channel is absolutely wonderful. Nullbyte, excellent videos, excellent on how to do this. And he's well known. He's done write-ups for years and has just a solid list of videos here on how to do a lot of reconnaissance and how to do Google dorking and how to run OSINT scripts. Really, really good videos in here. So I can't. I could probably maybe I should do this sometime, just make a list of a lot of these good YouTubers out there that have some really deep content on some of these topics. Yes, and that's, I try to, watching Tom for what videos to watch. I'm not afraid to talk about any other YouTubers, so to speak, and recommend them. I'm not trying to say I'm the single source. Matter of fact, I am by far not the single source. I like to share lots of resources. This is even why when I do a video, I always say links down below. I often will link to all the resources I used to grab this knowledge. That way people can read more into it. Yeah, and it's whether or not, it is important to do some of the, answer some of the basic questions. There's channels that are more geared towards that. You got to figure out the learning style you want, where you are in your tech life cycle. Are you at the very beginning of it and you don't know what anything is? You're in the middle. You're at the far deep end. So yes, I always share what my sources are. So I could do video on my sources is kind of a consolidated video, but for any video that there is a source, I link to the source where the information came from to make that video. That's an important distinction I try to do. So the video on Tom's sources, I do spend a lot of time on Reddit. I will make a list though. I will do the video on the news for Reddit, which by the way, I think I have it. I talked about this before, but I have multi-Reddit set up, and all my multi-Reddits are set to public. So if you want to know, here, I'll just drop this link right now. Then I'll have to do a video on it. Here we go. Here we go. There you go. That is the Reddit link for the subreddits I subscribe to for tech. So that is public information that I've now dropped in a link right here. And my Reddit username is Lawrence Systems, so it's really easy to find in case for those of you that are just looking and Googling for me and looking for me on Reddit. John Hammond is great too, yes. He's got some good videos. Great creator. In my nerd, people are saying localhost do not run is good. I don't know what that means. There's all kinds. Yeah, ask the lazy person to do the complicated work. Do you need to upgrade the pool? That's a good question. I didn't even see if there's any pool upgrades. So let's do that. Let's log into the TrueNAS. I don't think there's any differences from 12 to 12U1. I don't think there's a storage change, but let's take a look. I didn't see any notice to upgrade the pool. Nope. Pool options. Oh, okay, we have auto trim as an option. I don't think that was there before. I can't remember. So I'll dig into that, but it doesn't look like if you just did from 12 to 12U1, there's any update, anything to update. Usually it tells you if you've got to upgrade the pool to some new feature set. So it's already based on that. They're just unlocking and putting features inside of here. So when you're expanding and creating and adding the pools, and matter of fact, if we go here, add VDevs. I don't have any. Yeah, I don't have any disks in here extra, so it's not going to give me it. But if I had to add VDevs, that's when all that Fusion pool shows up. But that was already shipped in version 12 anyways. That is public information. Yes. Let's see. That link didn't show up. I don't know if it will then. That's probably a good question. Oh, Tom's link was filtered. The way you would find it is if you go reddit.com/user/Lawrence Systems, and I think when you do a user, let me look at when you see the user. I see it how you see it. Right there, public feeds followed by Lawrence System. So if you go to reddit.com/user/Lawrence Systems, and you can see the right here, tech, and away we go. Hopefully that helps, because it got filtered. Either way, maybe I'll tweet it. I don't know. I don't know an easier way to get this out there to people. It's available. Thoughts on Wi-Fi 6? I don't know. I don't use it. I don't have any thoughts on it. It passes right through my head. Oh. Do we have a solution for pfSense attacks via SSH? Don't open SSH. That's my solution for that. Reddit Premium. Of course I got Reddit Premium, man. All the money that people send me and I make off YouTube, I just go spend it elsewhere. So it's just part of keeping the tech ecosystem going. Actually, I'm a donor to several projects on Patreon, which do include pfBlocker. I put my money where my mouth is, and I definitely spend money on pfBlocker. They do great stuff. So, is there anything else for the good of the class? It's 6 o'clock. I'm getting tired. I've been talking for 2 hours. I'm gonna lose my voice and not be able to do videos. What else do we have here? Seeing if anything really important came in. All right. Thank you all for joining me. I much appreciate all of you, and look forward to more videos. And I'm getting, I get here every morning. I'm here generally a little bit before 7 a.m. So this is my 11th hour of being here, and I still will go home and play The Witcher for a little while. And then I'll answer all my forum posts, and then I'll crash and watch some YouTube and watch AVE blog. If you guys want to know what YouTube channel I watch, it's AVE. If you've wondered why I have some of those silly stickers and things like that, I know a few of you have to watch AVE as well. And for just to leave it with you, AVE blog. And by the way, he got some new stickers in, which I'm excited about. So, but this particular person is wonderfully fun to listen to. This video had me laughing hysterically. This is what happens when a sewer pipe breaks in a crawl space. It's not something you want to experience. Watching it through a YouTube video, way more fun. So, yes. Oh, he's got a good job about running hose too. It'll teach you how to run a hoe, digging a hole and rolling coal. It's a fun video. This is if you want to know what Tom watches when he's not doing tech things. So, and again, thanks. And should I upgrade from FreeNAS to TrueNAS? Yes, that's the last question I'm answering. And thank you.